with the split squat. What makes that movement so good?
One, it handles this balance issue. Also, you're training on one leg at a time. This will grow your legs.
What I've gotten from some of the stuff is, in most cases, you're trying to not only challenge with weight and with load, but you're also challenging with the actual movement itself. Does it ever get to a point where we're good?
Yes, the progression and the challenging of the mobility aspect is because you are tight.
When I think about like trying to help build an athlete, deadlifts, bench presses, and squats would be in there. I certainly wouldn't have anybody do it the way that I did it. I want to encourage people to just start low, start slow, implement just small facets of it over time. Yeah, I think there's massive difference between training people in person versus just online. And, there's a lot of people executing really well that are, they're doing both. But I do think that sometimes when I get information from certain people, it makes me kind of wonder. I'm like, oh, maybe they share that information that way because they're not used to working with people in person.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that when people don't have an experience with the in-person client, they speak a little bit more matter-of-factly and less it depends, which is generally the right answer, and have a less ability to think on their feet and like a quick adapt, or what if you can't do this, or what if this situation is occurring, how do you adapt to that? So.
Like some of the ATG movements, if you see somebody kind of get into like an ATG split squat, or sometimes you see something executed like a couch stretch or some of these things, especially when you're seeing Ben Patrick do it. You're like, wow, that looks incredible. And then if you aren't really schooled in that, you haven't really tried that before, you go to try it and you're like, pretty sure like the way I'm trying this doesn't look anything like the way that they're doing it, or it hurts. You go to do it and you're like, man, that hurts a lot. And so when you work with someone in person and you start to see some of the challenges that they are going through, then somebody that is a coach that works with people regularly in person can really help coach them through it. And it's a different experience. And that person's going to have just that much more knowledge than someone that's only coaching somebody online sometimes.
Absolutely. And so something about ATG is that you're not going to see in the reel, in the 15-second, Ben dunking, doing a splits, all that. Like that's the end product. That's to get your attention. But there's progressions. We start with people that are in 24-inch boxes and start doing a split squat. And that doesn't get attention. If you post that, no one cares. So
like their foot is on top of the box. Yeah. And that's their...
And all you're doing, you're just getting started.
Because they really can't sink into like a lunge hardly at all.
Correct. So of course that guy, if he only sees the reel, tries to do a flat ground split squat like Ben, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
So that's not the principles that we go by. It's all about progression and gradient approach to getting to this end range. So yeah. And again, someone who maybe doesn't have that experience in person, like you said, sees that and will attack it without understanding that there are progressions. Okay. So yeah.
You're one of those like rare people that's like had a chance to work with Charles Poliquin before he passed, right? Yeah. What are some of because he's worked with so many people, so what are some key ideas that you've learned from him in the way that now you program for athletes and the way you work with athletes, because you've worked with a lot of professionals too. So what are some like things, some nuggets?
It's a great question. I was at his last seminar before he passed in Estonia. I would say one of the main things is just it is prioritizing structural balance. Like ATG principles are based off of, we give a lot of credit, we give all the credit, if you will, to Charles Poliquin, right? It's all about structurally balanced. So that comes down to not only side to side, between legs, between arms, shoulders, whatever. It's between ranges of, the strength curve. So what is your strength in the bottom of a shoulder press versus the end? Squat, mid position, end position, ass to grass, bottom position. Okay, so that is probably the biggest thing that we've gained from that, is understanding that you need to have a proper balanced strength curve, okay, through entire ranges of motion. That's number one. I just would go with that. And then number two, I'd probably say is, he thinks everyone's pretty weak
and fat.
And fat.
Yeah.
It's like if you can't,
everyone's weak and fat.
He's got very high standards, but you have to realize what he was dealing with, right? So in ATG, I know Ben, I know I myself pride myself in taking the extreme of the ultimate performance and kind of, okay, how can we bring that down so that anyone can progress potentially to those high levels? But even if you don't ever get there, that's fine. But how can you take it from someone who can't even get out of bed comfortably, but still using the same exact knowledge? Okay, so it's the breaking down, the dumbing it down. Charles wasn't interested in it, but we want to try to help as many people with that. That is what we do, and get you to an ability where you can practice your sport or simply just live life a little bit more pain-free.
I think strength is just such a fascinating thing. As we get older and more mature, we start to recognize that there's so many different ways for someone to be strong and for someone to demonstrate their strength.
Yeah.
Somebody throwing a shot put, that's a demonstration of strength. Somebody throwing a javelin, somebody doing gymnastics, somebody, deadlifting 500 pounds. I think a lot of times when we're thinking about strength and we're thinking about sports, we're most often thinking about strength as it relates to the weight room. Every once in a while, someone might say, hey, do you think that really carries over? And who the hell even knows what that that sort of means? It's an interesting term. But just as an example, when I was lifting my heaviest weights, when I was my strongest, I was handling, 1,000 pounds nearly every week on something like a squat, right? Nice. But if we just change the exercise slightly, take a same movement, got the weight on my back, and let's just say you're looking for an ass to grass squat. Well, now the weight is reduced significantly. Let's say we just change the game even more and the weight needs to be lifted, not without going down. You just need to lift it from the bottom. So you wedge yourself underneath the weight. These are all exercises that I used to do. Various good mornings and various squats, like bottoms up squats and things like that. If you get down to a level that challenges my mobility, well, now my strength is also going to be compromised as well. Right. So it's interesting, and I love what you said about kind of strength curve and being in these positions, with a lower shoulder position. It might be tough for someone to get the weight started. And if you just even take the example of me being able to squat 1,000 pounds, probably a little high, in a powerlifting competition, versus me sinking a squat into a position where my heels are still on the ground, my butt, I'm as low as I possibly can go. My hamstrings are resting on my calves.
Correct.
It's well, now that's a totally different game, and that's a totally different thing because it's challenging me in so many different ways.
That's right.
So I love the attention that you guys have kind of brought to a lot of that, because that's been effective in my own training and just the health of my body, being able to keep myself together for things like running. Obviously, when it comes to a squat, I'm not trying to handle these crazy weights in those full range of motions. I'm doing, whatever level I'm at right now. But just to give people an idea of how much weight that could pull off of somebody, I would say that could cut your weight almost in half and maybe even more. You might be knocked down 50 or even all the way down to 30% of your max when you're just starting.
Absolutely. Two things I want to talk about quickly. That about the weight of starting weight when you're doing these more ranges of motion. I mean, I can rack pull 800, 900,000. My brother can rack pull 1,100. I mean, insane.
He actually can. This isn't a lie. He can. Yeah.
So these short range
rack pull is just a short range of motion deadlift, basically, probably wearing straps or something like that.
Straps, but no belt, nothing else, right? Cool. So
here's the deficit just to prove that it's not just the rack itself.
I don't remember how much, 450 something around that range. Deficit, wide grip. So you can get really strong, but so if I were to do half that range of motion, I can do more than double.
Got it.
Right? So yes, you definitely have to change the weight on the bar. The weight on the bar is we're not training the bar. How much weight's on that? We're training the tension and the muscles and the strength curve, right?
Almost a little more emphasis on the movement.
Correct.
Let me get the movement correct. And that's what I've seen Nsima do so much of. And it's cool to watch someone do it and they care about the quality of the movement. That's it's not even just the movement. It's I want the movement to actually look good too.
Yeah. Look
nice and smooth.
That's why we definitely prioritize form full range of motion. Again, that doesn't mean we never do partial. I mean, the Patrick step, the Poliquin step, the Peterson step, this is very much a partial movement. This is the $1 million knee exercise. We are huge on this, right? So partials have their place, but again, it's in relation to that full strength curve. If you also can't get out of the bottom, what if you get knocked in sport down into that position where your knee is very bent? Now that's where injuries occur because you can't get out of that position, okay? And another thing I wanted to say was about how does the strength relate to sport? You know, that's always a debate. But there is something that I'm aware of anyways. I'm pretty sure there was some test done with Usain Bolt, okay, who has the record. I think it was like a Nike test or something. He has the record for a mid-thigh, just simple pull, the strength per pound, okay? So your strength per pound absolutely translates to athletic ability. There's a lot of factors. There's tendons, there's obviously movement pattern, there's skill, there's all sorts of things. But with all those things equal, the person who is stronger per pound will be the better athlete. Simple. So improve that quality to the best of your ability without compromising, not at the expense of any of these other qualities. But do that in itself. The muscles work in a certain fashion. Get those as strong as possible. Then train your movement pattern. Then train your strength. You know, your skill.
You have your sport.
You have your sport.
Your skill.
Correct.
Just to test that out a little bit about you talking about like the strength being, you know, one of the more important factors.
Yeah.
You take someone like Stephen Curry. You know, you're not really associating him with being incredibly strong. Obviously, compared to your average person and everything, he's extremely fit, and we understand all that. But he's not a person you look at and you think, holy fuck, that guy's really strong. But in terms of some of what you're mentioning here, when you're talking about strength in terms of athleticism, no one, hardly anybody else in the world can move their body and propel their body through space the way that he can.
His conditioning is unbelievable.
And that is a crazy amount of strength. Not only the ability to accelerate, but the ability to brake, right? The ability to slow down.
Yes.
And these are all like little factors that sometimes we don't really think about. But then also you got to kind of factor in, like I mentioned this earlier, like I think it's a form of genius, the way that these guys can anticipate. I mean, he's anticipating like what the other guy's doing, what the other guy's about to do.
Oh, yeah.
He's anticipating the way the ball's going to bounce and all this crazy shit's going on all at one time. But a guy like that has insane levels of strength that we just, for some reason, we bypass. We're not even really thinking about it or considering it.
Yeah, a lot of people compare him to LeBron James. Okay, yeah, he's not going to look as strong, but per pound, who knows?
Also, we forget, like, he is pretty jacked. I think, like, because he looks so small compared
comparing to LeBron James.
You got 6'7" fuckers and there's 6'3" Steph Curry.
Yeah,
but like,
look at his arms.
He's a pretty jacked guy.
Right.
Yeah, thanks for pointing out the height, because he's the point guard, so he's going to be the shortest, like, on the court. But if he was standing here, he would be the tallest. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
same
like,
with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi's like 6'2" or 6'3"
he's fucking
too.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get, like, to not understand exactly how jacked they are because they're around monsters, like literal monsters. But he would be a monster in here right now.
But also, you don't need to be jacked. Like you don't need to necessarily be jacked to have tremendous amounts of strength output.
You can increase your strength without adding so much muscle mass.
Right.
There are different types of training, right? So you can emphasize these. You can go pure bodybuilding, pure hypertrophy, growth of muscle, or you can go a little bit more emphasized on trying to gain maximal strength with minimal muscle growth, okay?
I do like what you mentioned in the gym when you use the term athletic hypertrophy, because I haven't heard somebody say that before, but it makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an athlete in a sport and you're doing some lifting, you don't want to gain so much muscle that gets in the way of your sport. But at the same time, if you're an actual athlete doing your sport, you're burning so many calories when you do your sport that there's going to be a limit to how much hypertrophy you can even have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a limiter that's on you.
There's a limiter, and it's also sometimes, first of all, shout out to Charles for that coined word. I got that from him, athletic hypertrophy. That's how he used to classify it. And so It's when muscle mass is needed, depending, some sports you just need, okay, a football player, you need to have cushion. You need to be bigger, momentum, weight moves weight. There's a factor to this. But even outside of that, just you want to run faster. A sprinter, look at some of these sprinters, they're jacked. Depending on your genetics and body, you might need a little more muscle mass to tap in further for more strength. So that ratio of that strength to body weight ratio actually is better while gaining even though you're gaining weight, you're increasing the gap, right, of the strength. So that's what happened with me. I used to be a $180 at 20 years old. Right now I'm around 210, 212. But in my peak, I was a football player. I was running 4.4s, 215 to 218. I gained 10, 15 pounds and dropped my 40 time from 5.1 to 4.4. It's like that goes against all the, but you can't do that. You can't improve speed. I think that's all bullshit, and you absolutely can. And I've done it not only with myself, but many, many people. So again, with all other factors equal, the higher strength per pound is going to be the better athlete. So, and I think the Usain Bolt thing, again, to tie that back, it's like that guy he pulled such a heavy weight. It was unbelievable. Okay. So you can't deny that relationship is there. So any athlete you find like, oh, well, this, that, good. If they were stronger, would they be a better athlete? Not if everything else was
for
equal.
that specific athlete, potentially.
So,
and you're also maybe talking about it with yourself. I'm imagining you're talking about a little bit of an extreme situation. Were you really lifting much before?
I lifted. I've been personal training and lifting since I was I started lifting when I was in high school football, 14, 15 years old. But not seriously until I got to 17, 18, senior. And then I went to college and then I broke my ankle, like a fracture down in my lower ankle there. And And then I picked up jiu-jitsu, kind of like not heavy into lifting, but always lifted probably at least 6 months of the year. But just the very, what I would call basic LA fitness lifting. I don't know how to classify that other than that. I know what you mean. Yeah. So then,
it wasn't really targeted in terms of like trying to like gain a lot of size and strength.
Yeah, it was just like basic 4 to 6 rep, few accessories, higher rep, like just very basic, you can read a pamphlet and kind of get the idea. Okay. So I was doing that, but then as I started to pursue my football career, I was very skilled. Was not athletic enough. Just simply, I switched off of quarterback to safety, and I was like, I'm too slow. I'm not big enough. Like there was all these factors. So that's when I started working with Ben. We started training 10, 11 years ago now, and found Charles and all this stuff. And I spent 1 month. I timed my 40. It was 5'2", just under 5. It was like 5'1" and 8 or something, 5'1", something like that. Trained RDL, split squats. I started, by the way, on a 14-inch box. So
for the split squats.
Yeah, now I can do a splits. So we spent a month straight, 3 times a week doing that. This worked for me. This is not a protocol. It's just I spent doing RDLs and that, increasing my range of motion and increasing the strength. And I went down, and 4 weeks later, I'm running 4.7 repeatedly. I was like, whoa, this works. I thought I couldn't get faster. Okay, so then after a couple more years, got down to that 4.4, gained a bunch of strength. There's old videos of me squatting, 500 or 450 plus 200 pound change, things like this. So like when I started squatting, I was 225 maybe, crap form, deadlifting 275. So you can make quite an improvement over time. But another example of the strength to body weight, I am not a basketball player. I'm not a good jumper. I don't have a high skill in this. I can dunk a basketball very easily, exhausted. Right now, I could go dunk a basketball easily. There's a video of me. I do it with Ben every weekend when he's in town. Why? Because I'm strong per my pound. That's all it is.
Did your vertical increase as over time too with that?
Oh, so yeah, he's kind of well known for his like 19-inch vertical. Now he's I think I was 21-inch vertical.
Really?
Yeah. I ran a 5'2". These things, by the way, super correlate. Your speed, not always. There can be, again, skill and movement patterns can influence this. But again, my vertical was terrible. I could touch the net. And then in a couple of years, I remember we would spend hours trying to dunk. And then finally, just as we got stronger and stronger, now I can run up tomahawk, two-hand, anything. You know what I mean? So all I have really done, I didn't do any classes on how to jump.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could improve easily.
Was there any plyo work done during any of that time or anything like that?
Yeah. So at first, no, right? It was just get stronger, increase my range of motion. Then as you get stronger, we have a kind of general rule where it's like, if you can't ass to grass squat 1.5 times your body weight, your return on plyometric training is very low. Okay? Now, once you get stronger, once the muscle fibers in the body can handle more forces without pain and things like this, then the plyometric starts to have a greater return.
Yeah, just think about what he's saying there. It's pretty simple to follow along, and if you can't handle some of these weights this way, it's going to be very not that it won't be productive at all, but it could be more damaging than it could cause more harm than good.
Yeah.
Because when you are landing, like if you're doing like a jump or something like that, every time you land, you're landing with not just the force of your own body weight, but with the force of gravity. So if you're doing something where you're jumping up onto something and then coming back down and then trying to jump on something else, that's where you could get yourself in a whole heap of trouble if you're not, sometimes people think this way when they're going to coach like some girls volleyball or something like that. They're thinking they're going to have them do all these plyos. And that's probably a great idea, but not until they're up to par, not until they've gained a lot of strength.
That's the box jumps, jumping onto a box. Personally, I hate them. I think they don't need to be an action. Depth jumps are far better. Land and then jump.
Right.
If you cannot absorb what you're doing, you're just increasing your risk of injury. So box jumps and only increasing your power output, your engine horsepower without the brakes, without the ability to harness that, is how injury occurs, in my opinion, in sports. So yeah, some of these, the volleyball is a perfect example. I see that they're doing all these plows and jumps. Like these people can't even use their natural ranges of motion. You have them do a body weight squat and they have knee pain. Like, why are you having them? They can't handle those forces, So that is how the tendon breaks down, the ligament, that's how you get these ACL injuries all the time. The hamstring is not strong enough to cut. They have the power to put that force through it, but they can't break it. And so then everything explodes. It goes out.
Pat Project family, we love beef on this podcast. We talk about it a lot. All right. We love our meat. But sometimes eating the same meat all the time can get a little bit boring. That's why we partner with Good Life Proteins, which also has certified Piedmontese on their website. But sometimes you might just want to eat some chicken or fish or duck. Duck. Who eats duck? But you can eat duck. That's why if you go to goodlifeproteins.com, you can select their Build-A-Box options and input all the proteins you want. Then you'll select subscribe and save to save money on all of your meat. If you enter code PowerProject at checkout, you can save up to 25% on your subscription. That means you're going to be saving 25% on all of that different meat that's going to be heading to your door. Once again, head to goodlifeproteins.com. You can enter code PowerProject and save up to 25%. Links are in the description box below, as well as the podcast show notes. Can you explain, like, with the split squat, what makes that movement so good? Because there's a bunch of things that are going on when someone does do a split squat. So why would that be a movement that, whatever anybody's doing, they might want to consider progressing over time? You don't need to start at the highest level of a split squat, but progressing over time.
I had a reel on it, and it's just like I would choose it as my favorite lower body exercise because I guess there's many factors. It's one, it handles this balance issue, right? So we spend the majority of our life and in sport in the top half of our knee bend, let's say, right? We also have spent, probably a lot of us athletes have spent a lot of years half squatting. If you come from a powerlifting background, it's a half squat. It's that's your maximal power output area.
Yeah.
So spending this time now in this bottom full range, you're going to fix these structural balance issues. Okay. Also, you're training on one leg at a time, and this will grow your legs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna hit adductors like you can't do in a double leg squat. You're gonna fix imbalances between each, like neural drives, even core stability. If you want to talk about anti-rotation
it's
strength,
a little yoga-ish as well.
You're
getting some of the benefits of like stretching and trying to relax, and like what I've gotten from some of the stuff is the ability just to
in the bottom position,
just to chill the hell out.
Yeah.
You know, everything in lifting so often is like, you know, white knuckled. You know?
Well, you can do this both. So I'll go, so you'll see here, I go 225. Right. I can do 20. Like when I start with someone, no, yeah, you're what you can do. And I do have them do 5-second pauses in the bottom, relax, get that like, mind muscle connection to this new range of motion that you have not spent time in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's a long-term progression.
Yeah.
It took me years to get to that.
I also do want to mention, don't forget where you were, but like the first time I did a split squat, and like that style split squat was a little bit before Ben came, and I had a meniscus surgery on my left knee, and I always thought like, okay, I'm gonna have knee issues forever because of soccer. I had a bunch of knee issues. It was painful when I first started attempting the split squat. When I would try to get that deep into those tissues, it was extremely uncomfortable. I had to regress it to a place that was pain-free. But over time, now the split squat is painless. It's one of those movements that I do every single day because it feels so fucking good. So I hate it when people are like, look at that movement and they say, this isn't functional or it's unsafe for the knees. It's unsafe right now if you haven't trained your joints in that range of motion almost ever.
Because you don't have that strength in that part of the curve. It's the same thing with dips. It's like, well, that's bad for your shoulders if you go deep. Is it? Or do you not have the strength? A dip inherently, there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
There's nothing wrong with my body doing its natural range of motion. If I don't have the strength for it, then you have to regress and, okay, work your way. But to me, that's also a sign. If I have pain doing something that seems to be the normal movement of joints, that to me is like, that's not right. I should fix this. What's going on? Let me look into this. So, and I even have my father's 71. I don't know if you can find I have a video of him. He's jacked. I mean, he's on good TRT. He started like 5 years ago, but he had this is in the 70s. He was a karate master, by the way.
Oh, damn.
He was in talks for movies with Bad Guy for Bruce Lee. I mean, the guy is like an amazing natural athlete. Never lifted weights until his 50s. Then he got really overweight, started TRT, We can get into diet later. He's on carnivore for 2 years now. Like amazing shape now. He had terrible knee pain, could not squat, started, regressed, just walked backwards with a sled, a little bit of resistance. Now you'll find a video, he's able to do things that he's never, ever been able to do. He could never do pull-ups in his life, Bobby, he told me.
Damn, look at him going. That's amazing.
And
he has got some muscle on him too.
There's another one of him squatting.
Dude, what's with these old guys working out in jeans? That's great.
Dude, he's hilarious. He puts on 70s rock and just... He's jacked. He's in better shape now. I just saw him a few weeks ago, and he's in Miami, and he's now 71. Yeah, this is like a year ago. There's one where he's now holds weight and goes on a slant board, squats deep, full knee bend. He has no meniscus. It's gone. This is 70. They took it out.
Yeah.
He can squat ass to grass with a little bit of warm up now all the way. So the strength of the muscle around the joint and its if you have it fully balanced there, can really be remarkable what it can do for your joint and protecting that joint. So if there's pain, to me, that's only a sign that there's an imbalance of strength. Not always the case, but that's generally, it's something I would at least look into.
With the split squat specifically, because like I have a lot of imbalances, right? So like my left and rights are going to be very different. Is there something that someone like me needs to consider when it comes to like doing the split squat to, I guess, in an attempt to try to rebalance and obviously get stronger? But like, is there something else I need to worry about? Like, just throwing it out there, I'm pretty sure this is incorrect, but like, if my left side's imbalanced, I'll do twice as much on the left side. You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that I should even consider or not consider? Yes,
simple. I always start with the weaker side. Arm legs. So just start with the weaker side and only match on the stronger side. That is a good question, because a lot of people will, and they'll just do like double the rep. No. And if anything, you can add one extra set at the end on the weaker leg. Like sometimes I'll do that with a client if it's really far off. Now we do have dominant sides. This is not 5%, a little bit of percentage, that's fine. But with these unilateral exercises, I always with my guys have them start with it, basically. Put the most neural drive, the most effort into that weaker side so that they only have to match it on the stronger side. And that tends to fix the problem pretty quickly, honestly.
Let's say someone's in a ton of pain and they're just like not sure where to start. Where do you think someone should start? What's a good starting point?
In regards to the split squat?
Just in regards to trying to get into any ATG type of thing, just so you can get yourself out of pain.
Body weight, like the lowest regression body weight. Ben talks about this all the time, backwards walking if it's a knee pain issue. But there's a lot of low back and stuff. So there's like ATG 0 programs, it's called, right? It's just getting to use your body in natural movements, starting from the ground up. Start working your tibialis, put your back against the wall and lift, do a little neck bridge, if you have to, use your own arms and just start going through these ranges of motion. Start, stretching. Stretching, I'm not a huge into like the excessive hypermobility stretching stuff. I'm not. But, if it doesn't hurt you to bend down and try to touch your toes and come back up, do that. It's all about progression. The body will adapt to what you do. So if you sit, it's going to adapt and become a ball. If you start to move it, go for walks. I'm big on walking. I know you are too. It's like, start putting blood flow and start trying to attack those new ranges of motion that you should have. But if you just progressively overload that effort, then it just starts so start with the body weight is the simple answer. It's like master your own body weight. If you can't use your own body weight in its ranges, you have an issue. So let's start that program. And then from there, you can progress into more advanced loading and like, with external weights and stuff like that.
And there is an older and active program that Ben's mom is like she does a lot of those workouts. So people who are older, they can actually do all of those movements and regress them to a place that they can actually do them at multiple times a week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's my dad just started squatting a year ago, maybe a couple years ago. So it started with the sled. So if you do have access to the sled, that's phenomenal. Backwards.
For yourself, do you do like a lot of other types of lifting as well? Like we only see what we see from like ATG. So we see the split squat and we see various exercises, backward sled and stuff. But do you hop on machines and stuff and do like a little bit of bro sessions? Do you like bench press and shit like that?
So I bench press. I actually currently have a goal to bench press 315, and I do want to start testing out and using your slingshot.
Hell yeah.
After this, maybe you can give me a couple tips too.
For sure.
It's to me, that's a movement. There's a skill there. There's a whole skill to bench pressing, okay? So I want to learn that. I've learned a bit, but yeah, I talk about it here a little bit. This is about range of motion, but I'm on a journey to get to my 315 and whatever and see where it can go. But so I'll generally right now, honestly, I don't. The program I'm on most is Power Builder, which is a program I created. It was actually after I met with Will Tenney. We did a YouTube, Ben and him did it with a YouTube, and it kind of satisfies that old me in the LA Fitness. I want to, it's not quite a big 3 program. I'm kind of working on that, to be totally honest. Right now, behind the scenes, I want to like make a good balanced big 3 program, but I get to deadlift. I do deadlift, I bench press, but then I spend the rest of the time on my accessory to keep my body balanced. And, we're very much into full ranges of motion. I dumbbell press, like crazy range of motion, dips, all these things. So machines, man, by the way, don't consider cable machine.
Right.
Just so you know. But I haven't done that in a long time. I used to when I was young, because I gained about, like when I said I was like $180 and I went up to 200, that was what I did. I would do my basic movements and then pump out some accessory machine work. So look, for bodybuilding, for pure hypertrophy, very useful. Again, that partial range. I just think even bodybuilders should spend time on the full range. Whether you do it first or at the end of your workout, whatever, like don't neglect it, because that's when you get this bad connotation of the tight, bodybuilder who's got a lot of joint pain. That only comes from not having a balanced strength curve.
I think people will be shocked. I think a lot of high-level bodybuilders can actually move really well.
I've seen these guys doing splits on stage.
A lot of the IFBB pros and stuff. I mean, I'm sure like for every guy that's like super mobile, there's probably a couple guys that are not. But even someone like Chris Bumstead comes to mind. I mean, that guy can move really well. Yeah. He can dunk a basketball. And
look at his dip. He goes shoulder, beneath that elbow. So people are like, oh, it's bad. Like, It shouldn't be.
And when he does his squats and stuff like that, I mean, sometimes he's on a Smith machine, but he's still like burying his squats, you know, full range of motions.
Tom Platz.
Yeah.
Ass to grass.
Yeah.
Now he's got a lot of mass that makes it seem a little short, but look at the depth, like look at the closing of the hamstring to calf. Even Arnold used to raise his heels. There's a good old famous video of him with, I think it was Columbo, and he's going down. You know what I mean? So, the study that I referenced recently was, full range versus partial range is another thing I want to say is the partial range, there's like some debate there because of this, I think it's called hypoxia. It's like a lack of blood, oxygen in the blood that creates like a growth hormone response or something, can help with muscle growth.
Okay.
So, but then on the other side, the full range activated more muscle fiber, so it was better long term and better strength curve wise, right? Okay. Now, there's a truth to that. And so that's, again, where we do use partials, okay? It's not an attack on that, but I like to use certain methods to create that same hypoxia, that same lack of, that burning sensation, if you will, which is the tricep thing, the drop set thing, start with the super full range, then go a little shorter, then go. So I have a program where ATG Muscle, it's kind of one of the most successful programs yet. And I use these trio sets, okay? And I freaking love them. It's like start with an ass to grass squat, then go to split squat, then go to a hack squat. It's like, okay, you're gonna have plenty of hypoxia, plenty of burning going on if that's what you're. Anyways, and that's been proven over time. A lot of people use this type of method, and it helps achieve failure quite easily. Mike Mentzer's very big into just you need one set to failure. There is a truth to that, but most people can't really tap in.
Yeah, the intensity to do that one.
that guy's an animal. Pros can do this. You need training partners. It's very hard to do it. And also he does use these giant sets to achieve this failure. He just does this giant set once. So in the end, it's kind of similar. We used sets you think of it as a warm-up to hit that failure. Okay, so once you hit that failure, you're going to have a good hypertrophy response.
I think a big factor in all this too is just success. You're mentioning like these progressions and regressions. Sometimes you go to do something, and you're like, oh shit, like I'm not able to actually do that with hardly any weight. Oh crap, I can't use any weight at all. Just got to use body weight. You say, oh shit, I can't do it that proficiently, full range of motion. So I got to cut the range of motion down. But over time, you start kind of chipping away and you start to have progress and you start to be able to do the range of motion better. You start to be able to add weight. And I think what's lost sometimes in fitness in general is this idea of these small incremental improvements over time. There are still the guys out there and girls that are, writing down their program and writing down if they did 5 more pounds or whatever. But I think the diligent practice of that, especially when you're new to some of this stuff, it can make you feel amazing. Like it feels so good when you go in the gym and you lift 300 pounds and the next week you're like, I think I can go a little heavier, and you do 305 and maybe even like 315, like you're so pumped. And it gives you like a lot of momentum, gives you a lot of reassurance. So having success with this stuff, I think, is really important. And when somebody's starting some of these programs, I want to encourage people to just start low, start slow, make sure it doesn't hurt. Maybe try one of these exercises or something before a workout or something like that, and you just implement just small facets of it over time.
Yeah, treat it as a warm-up or a cool-down, if you will. Just even that starting to build from there, and you'll gain something from it. The body adapts, so if you're adding something new to it, I can't see how that doesn't work. And to back up the thing about success, I love that point. Never want to change what's working for somebody, because in the end, what's the point is results. That's the only thing that matters. And there was, I was telling you about earlier about the study that was done with 2 groups of people. They tested their 100-meter, okay? And then one group, without knowing, was running a little bit shorter each week. And so their time was getting faster. And the other group, it was increasing the distance, and they were getting, and by the end, they tested testosterone. I think it was over 20% increase in the winning, and a 20%, or I can't remember. Don't quote me on exactly, but it was like huge drop in testosterone for the losers.
For the guys who their increased distance for their 100.
Yeah. So they thought they were like, oh, we're getting slow, and they got depressed, if you will. They lowered their testosterone in their body. They were not doing well. And then the other guys were winning, right? And their testosterone was skyrocketed. So they then tested their actual 100 meter, and all the guys that won were all faster. And all of the ones that were all slower because they ruined their confidence. So just like you said, take a win. Start where you can win. Pain-free ability. Give yourself some room to win and improve. You know, don't jump in and just fail off your first attempt. It's kind of like, well, what's the point? You know, so
give yourself time. That's I think you literally just mentioned this, but again, with all of these things, you need time to be able to progress to all of this. I think one thing that makes it difficult when it comes to lifting in this way is when I was doing bodybuilding style lifts when I was younger, and my only focus was hypertrophy. Doing a shoulder press is easy. I don't have to progress to being able to do a shoulder press on a bench or on a machine. Doing a chest press on a machine, easy. Day one, I can do that. Doing a leg press, day one, easy. I can limit range of motion a little bit, stack fucking 3 plates on, and I can do that. All these things are day one wins. An ATG split squat, full range of motion dip, a Jefferson curl. All of these movements aren't day one wins, because you're going to attempt a Jefferson curl with a little bit of weight and you'd be like, why does my back hurt? Right? It's like, this is a bad movement. You have to literally start with no weight and progress there. And that's not something that a lot of people who like to lift, they're not used to progression like that.
Yes.
They're not used to the time it takes to progress like that. So then they think, it's just unsafe shit.
Yeah, exactly. They just assume automatically it's bad. Oh, that must be bad. Yeah. And that's good. Yeah, like a Don, like my brother and Julian Balde, you guys had him on.
Yeah.
He does, again, for Instagram, he's doing a 275 back. It's like, what? And the comments are hilarious. Dude. This guy rehabbed he broke his back. And he deadlifts over 600 pounds now easily. Like we were doing a deadlift program. I got to 600, he got to 700. His back is bulletproof.
When you say he broke his back, what do you mean?
Spondyly? I don't know. I don't know the exact detail, but he had spondyly. What's it called?
Spondylitis or something.
Yeah, something like this. He was actually, I don't know, something like that.
He had spirulina.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Spondylosis, a condition in which there is abnormal wear on the cartilage and bones of the neck, cervical vertebrae.
Well,
okay.
It was down low.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the details, but I know he had some serious issue and he couldn't move. And it was actually at a bobsled tryout. He made the USA rookie team, broke his back, failing a squat. So this is where, again, don't eagle like. Now, he was doing this for like career purpose. That's a little bit of a different situation. But yeah, he curved and lifted and he couldn't move for days, a week. And then now he's deadlifting 700 pounds.
And he's still athletic as fuck. He's still playing football. He's sprinting. He's jumping. He's a mutant.
So who am I searching for?
I just pictured FP.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
I just pictured FP clipping that because he hurt himself squatting and then he got back to lifting and now he's deadlifting more. They're gonna be like, hey,
yeah. Well, and this was we use the reverse hyper a lot. That's something that's not like commonly talked about in the ATG system because we don't like, it's not needed or it's not really there. But I'm a big fan of the reverse hyper from Louis Simmons. Broke his back, powerlifting, yes.
A little traction action.
And just, dude, that thing is amazing. So
makes you feel taller when you get off there. The first couple times you use it, you're like, holy shit.
The big thing about that is the strength curve. So we spend time stretched position in the mid position deadlift. But what about that end position, that closed position, okay? That's where reverse hyper comes in. There are other ways to do this. Simple. That's Julian Baldi. That's our protege here. Don's protege. He's been training him forever. He was back in ATG and then now he's there.
What team is he on?
He was playing overseas and he played college, made it from nothing. That guy's an amazing story. That guy's awesome. And then we have Filippo Fort, another guy I was training since he was 15 years old.
I wish we could pull up one of his back extensions.
I'll find
he's been all over Sports Center, dude.
He likes to do those top reps where he like loads a fuck ton of weight to the right of that. That's an interesting thing.
We do a lot of, so funny enough, he had a weak lockout positions in his bench and in his squat. So there are times where this is not ATG here. I'm gonna be honest. This is a Don.
He's gone off the rails.
Don is more into the extreme freaks like this.
He's gone
But
rogue.
I'll be honest. I've done those things. You know,
I miss shaking like that with
yeah.
a little terrifying. You're like, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen?
the high level strength athletes, football players tend to get into that powerlifting mentality and stuff. Like, there's reasons to do all that. But I'm going to tell you, that guy spends so much time in the bottom of a split squat. So much in the bottom of a seated good morning, stretching, hypermobile, quote unquote. He's not hypermobile. He's strong through an entire range of motion. Okay. So
those partial range of motions, back to kind of the idea of like just feeling good, and just feeling good about, some of what you're doing.
Yeah.
The partial range of motions really lend themselves to you handling good weight. The other thing that they do is that I don't think
that's old ATG, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
When he started.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand the execution of like a squat, the execution of a deadlift is actually like, it's quite challenging. It takes a long time to be able to execute. And it's actually really rare to see someone like just perform a perfect squat.
Oh, off the bat?
Yeah, just boom. They can.
There is a factor of skill.
Yeah, there's a skill set in there. It takes people some time to learn. And Nsima mentioning like sometimes you can just go right on the machine and you can learn it right away. And that's why machines were invented. And they're great because you can kind of just get right to the point. Yeah. You don't really need a warm up. You don't need a whole lot of instruction. You use the thing a couple times and you're off to the races. But with a squat and with a deadlift, these are movements that if you just cut them in half or you only do like a quarter version of it, it's much easier to maintain position. It's much easier to practice the exercise. And it's not a bad place for people to just utilize that in conjunction with also working on the longer ranges of motion.
Right. Absolutely. That's where the partials come into play. A partial, what should I say here? Step ups, these reverse step ups. Like if you can't do a squat, if you have knee pain, you have imbalances, just put 6 inches on it and just start doing a touchdown squat. There's many versions, however you want to, people will argue which is the best. It doesn't matter. Like, and these quarter rep, the problem I would not argue, but say with telling, let's say, a young kid, okay, yeah, it's okay to do a partial rep as long as, yes, but that's they get high off of, wow, I did 225, wow, I did 350. And now they spend too much time in that, and then they create the imbalance, and now they get injured.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of why, especially
and they're not using it to have a progression for longer range.
Yeah, if they had a proper coach, maybe I might spend a little bit of time. There is a ATG program out there that does these parts. It's called the rhythm squats. Learned that from Charles too. 50 rhythm squats. Okay, you go on your toes for 10, flat foot 10. Just top quarter.
Okay,
it's very good for jump programs for peaking. Okay, so again, the world we live in is so dopamine driven right now that if I said online, hey, yeah, you can spend time doing, in 6 months, he's going to only be doing quarter rep squats with way too much weight.
Doing it on everything, doing it on bench and doing it everywhere he can.
Because he wants to lift more weight.
Right.
Okay. So that's where I would just put a caveat on that. But in general, I completely agree. There is a strength curve, and the end of a range is going to be significantly stronger, of course, than the fully stretched position of that joint. So,
and most exercises that you guys are doing, correct me if I'm wrong here, but most of the exercises that you guys are doing, and in most cases, you're trying to not only challenge with weight and with load, but you're also challenging with the actual movement itself, like trying to challenge the proficiency of the movement and maybe even the range of motion of the movement. Like, over time, does it ever get to a point where you're like, we're good? Like,
there is an end.
Yeah, like you don't need any more. Like, you're going to get to a point where it gets to be weird. Like, does that happen sometimes?
Absolutely. There is an end.
Squatting 500 pounds.
Or just like being in some sort of compromised position where you're like, I don't know if that's safe anymore.
It's the mobility thing. It's like, well, it's the natural. So, okay, yes, there is an end if you are flexible enough. The progression and the challenging of the mobility aspect is because you are tight. You don't have your natural born flexibility. So we try to kind of
restore that.
Yeah, restore that, reverse out the sitting and the not moving for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, however long it's been, and gaining back natural range of motion. That's all we're trying to go for. We're not trying to go for extended hypermobility. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we really don't want that. So yes, long-term progression, you're challenging that mobility. But once you get there, like I don't have to spend a lot of time stretching anymore. I don't, to be honest. Like I just do my split squat. I can go right now, flat ground.
I don't think you spend a lot of time stretching anymore either, do you?
I just do it like kind of before bed. I do that kind of stuff as a cool down to relax my body, move into ranges of motion.
But you spent a bunch of years stretching, right? You were doing that consistently for a pretty long time?
Yeah, and I still do.
Oh, you still do?
I still do just to feel good, but I don't need it for my flexibility at this point.
Yeah.
I see.
And now, so that's where it's like there's a balance between only mobility and only, and tight, limited strength. So we try to incorporate all these facets, like balance, which increases stability, challenging the mobility, getting back, restoring ranges of motion, okay, restoring natural mobility, optimal mobility, if you will, and then also increasing that strength. So we attack all three of those factors in these movements. But yeah, once the mobility is there, then it's okay. Now you just start progressively loading the strength and making sure you're balanced, and it goes from there.
I do like what you mentioned there, Mark, though, about the stretching thing, because there's a lot of people who think stretching isn't necessary, and to an extent it is. To an extent it is. If you're doing stuff and resistance training like what you're talking about here with split squats, full range of motion, controlling that load within those ranges of motion is going to allow you, I think it's called stretch strength is what you guys have coined it, but it's going to allow you to be strong through long ranges of motion. Now, without that weight, you can still access, like you can do the splits without trying, and it's not like you stretch to do the splits, but because of your ability to be strong in those positions, you can access them at will. And you're not hypermobile where you access these and your joints are out of whack, or there's too much ligament laxity. There's all the tightness you need to get in and out of those positions. I still think I like stretching to kind of just, because I do jujitsu, get my body into those ranges, right? Allow my body to sink there a little bit, stay there a little bit, be comfortable, because in jujitsu, you kind of need that ability to be in certain wonky positions and be chill. Right? Wow. It's not like I don't, but I think you can achieve that level with lifting, but stretching is, I still find it beneficial for myself.
Yeah, I kind of say that I don't stretch, but I actually stretch. And if I think about it, I stretch way more often than I probably give myself credit for.
I was going to say the same thing.
But I don't.
I was like, wait.
Yeah, I don't.
I was doing a couch stretch earlier.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was doing it while we were talking and stuff like that. And sometimes I may not spend a lot of time with like a traditional stretch, but I think that lifting, to some extent, is stretching. And lifting, it can be stretching, and it sometimes isn't stretching. And so you can just simply take certain exercises with lifting and turn them into greater ranges of motion where there is more of a stretching 100%. Aspect to it. And so that is probably where I would encourage people the most. Like if you don't really want to do the ATG stuff and you think you're going to end up with a man bun and everything else,
sorry,
then we get it. We understand, you just want to lift the weights and stuff like that. But just explore a little further ranges of motion here and there, and use a little less weight and get some of the benefits of being able to open your body up a little better.
Yeah. I was going to say, like I use stretching as a recovery tool.
Blood flow.
I flew last night, got delayed. I was in an airport / plane for 16 hours. It was tight. So right before bed, I spend time stretching. I don't normally do that. I don't have to normally. If I catch myself, I haven't stretched in a few weeks and I'm going heavy and whatever, I start to feel a little, okay, I'll do a couple adaptive stretches. I'll stretch what is getting tight. So I use it as a recovery tool. Strongly recommend that. And to what you were saying is, if you don't want the man fun, no, if you're on a program, if you're winning, you're doing good, but you're curious, or you want, start with something. Again, a lot of people will say, oh, what about there is science to it. There's even science on the Golgi tendon that why the body is tight. It's a defense mechanism. Okay. Well, increasing strength will just think about it like kind of hypothesize this. If the body was trying to survive and it's like, well, if I know if I stay here, I'm not going to get injured. But what if I extend my elbow? Like it's very weak, it's going to get injured. So I have to cut that. But now if you start to breathe, you start to get stronger. It goes, oh, okay, look, hey, oh, it's okay, look. And now all of a sudden you've restored your range of motion. So strength is very important to that flexibility and to actually increasing flexibility. So I tell people when they're doing split squats, don't be afraid to add a little load. Like start high, get to something you can do pain-free, but then don't be afraid to start to hold a couple dumbbells, and start to progress as you're increasing your mobility. Also increase your strength, and it will actually accelerate that process.
Yeah. Improving your sleep quality is as easy as shutting your mouth. And what I mean by that is putting some tape on, breathing through your nose will increase your sleep quality. It's no longer just something that only the bros do. It's now been researched, and people understand that if you can breathe through your nose while you're asleep, you'll have better sleep quality and you will wake up more rested. Hostage tape is also really awesome because I know what I used to do. I used to use a little bit of a cheaper tape, and every time I'd wake up in the morning, the tape would be somewhere else on the bed or on my face, but it wouldn't be on my mouth anymore. But hostage tape, if you have a beard or if you don't, will stay comfortably on your mouth all through the night. And if you're someone who has a problem breathing through your nose, Hostage also has nose strips. So you can place those on your nose while you're asleep, or if you want to be like one of those Hormozy guys, you can wear it during the day. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at hostagetape.com/power project, where you guys will receive an entire year's supply of mouth tape and the nose strips for less than $1 a night. Again, that's over at hostagetape.com/power project. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I have a video we want to show you. We saw this yesterday. You haven't seen it yet, but I want to get your response to this. This is a little beef.
Uh-oh.
It's not going to be an end of the world. It's not the end of the world you're talking about. It's the end of us. And the world.
All right, thank you. It's
Okay, sorry, I was like... Oh, do they say anything at all?
no. Mobility, the ability or capacity to move as a human. That's mobility, right? And this is check. For people who can't see it, he showed a hypermobile, like a person doing mobility, and then showed him running. Next slide. Strength.
Fake strength.
Showing someone do a deadlift.
Lane Norton doing a deadlift.
Okay.
And then real strength is
Something.
it's moving through space with load. So everything they do is through the gait cycle and through movement. And what is being shown here is just a up and down deadlift as fake strength. Okay. Next.
That's my
Stability. The quality. I can't read that far. Can you read it, Andrew?
No.
And then this stability is moving through space, and he's using one of their cable machines. The body needs stability through motion.
Okay.
Let's see, is that it?
It's from functional patterns.
And that's the functional trinity.
Mobility, strength, stability. Funny. Okay. All right. Well, a couple things immediately. I mean, just on that slide right there, mobility, strength, and stability. He's saying that the split squat is not that.
And the stability definition was the quality, state, or degree of being stable. And it's not moving through space. The split squat doesn't have somebody moving through space, so it's not actual stability.
Okay, well, first, I'm pretty sure if you look, someone's moving through time and space. Okay, so that, I mean, that's just a simple answer to that.
Not in the gait cycle, though.
Fine, but they are moving through space. And two, it's actually, funny enough, he's promoting, I guess, what he calls here the functional trinity. Split squat is, I would consider, is very much those three things.
Okay.
It's stability, side to side, balance. Okay. I mean, try one, do one. It's a lot of people, you sometimes need to hold on. It's quite unstable. So there's a stability factor. Put 225 on your back and do it. There's a strength factor. If you're not strong enough, your body cannot hold the bottom position. So there is an adaptive strength component. And then the last one is as you say, mobility. Yeah, well, like we were just talking, it does help restore mobility that is lost through time or from lack of body movement. So that already kind of, I don't like to get into like the beef and all that. You guys know that. Maybe it's a lack of understanding of the ATG system or that movement in itself. But what I saw in the earlier slides and the kind of the exercise, I am aware that there is a very big field of movement pattern training, if you will, which to me, and this is actually something that was backed up by Charles. I wish he was kind of around because he would have some fun words. but nice. I'll be nice. I'm much nicer socially, anyways. So those are skills. To me, that is skill-based movement. Nothing wrong with it. If it's helping somebody, great. I will never bash or shit on anybody who is gaining something from this. But people who already play sport and already have set movement patterns, I don't think, I'll be a little more affirmative. It's not the optimal way to increase their movement patterns. Okay, so muscles work in one way. They contract and relax, and they have their individual functions. So if I simply can increase the capacity of these muscles while then integrating with whatever movement pattern, soccer, football, whatever it is, jiu-jitsu, then I'm going to get the maximal benefit for my sport, okay? If your goal is to spin around 3 times, then, with a dumbbell, then maybe that would be the best thing, okay? If you want to do cartwheels, okay? So, I don't know if he's had a lot of attack on ATG or other people, but like to say that something is a fake strength or is incorrect, like that to me just doesn't make sense. I mean, if it's so fake, lift 600-pound deadlift. Like I've been in situations, I do a lot of volunteer work and I burn house and I had to use I'm gonna tell you, I had a perfect deadlift form and I had to lift this whole kitchen thing, whatever. So these things are not fake. It's just depends on your goal. Depends what are you trying to apply it to.
If you pick up 600 pounds and your hands are way stronger than when you were only able to pick up 300 pounds. And your grip, there's so many different aspects that can carry over into. It can carry over into life. It can carry over into your sport. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, doing baseball, baseball players have big jacked forearms and a good grip on the baseball bat and so forth. So to try to call it fake strength, I don't think really makes any sense, but to maybe say that it might not be as relevant as we think and that there might be other optimal ways, I'm open to that. I'm open to hearing some conjecture on that.
And where I will give his due, I don't know a lot about him, so I won't even speak personally to him, but I'll say that, somebody who doesn't move at all, who is so stuck in a no movement pattern, there's going to be a lot of benefit to that. There is, absolutely. And the last thing I will say is from what I did see that I'm gathering here is that anti-rotation core strength. One of the main functions of the core is to prevent rotation, to harness, to stop, right? So hence allowing forces from the ground up to be channeled through the entire body. From a punch, so much from the hip, it comes through the core. If you don't have a strong core, even in a squat, most people fail. Why do you need weight belts? At some point, it becomes the limiting factor. Okay, so yes, though a power lift that guy is power lifting. That is his sport. So don't call it fake.
It's a sport.
Especially if he's getting paid and winning, that's not fake. That's what he needs to do. Does the office worker that's 50 years old need to deadlift? No, fine. But again, it all depends. Okay. So in the end, though, if we're talking about athletics, performance, I can't say that this type of movement patterns and mace work and all that, like there can be benefits for sure and along the road, but I don't think it would be the main priority for, let's say, a basketball player or even better, well, let's just say a power lifter. You know what I mean?
Dude, these athletes in sports need physical resilience. You know, like, and the thing is that what the things that he was showing there, they can definitely be progressed. And I can see how beneficial some of that is, because you're moving through space, you're extending, you're coming back. But there's only so much there's only so much ways you can load those tissues with those movements.
Right.
You know, when he was doing maybe the dumbbell thing with the press and the cable, you're not going to put a 100-pound dumbbell over your head with that, ideally, while moving
like
smoothly.
how do you keep progressing it is a big issue.
But an athlete that's a field sport athlete, grappler, even basketball players, to an extent, they lift. They need their tissue. They need their tissues, joints, ligaments. They need all these things to be resilient enough to handle another man playing defense, tackling, pulling an arm bar.
Yes.
You cannot be physically weak.
Yes.
And the problem is, like, these sports, we're doing so much within the sport already that is a skill, that is a movement skill, right? That why do I need to necessarily focus on more movement skills? Like as in like lightweight movement-based skills, right? It's not like they're bad, especially for the individual who has nothing in their life that's a movement-based skill.
Again, back to the volleyball player, like they jump all the time.
All the
So
time.
then
need
a
to
coach
jump more.
or strength coach is going to want to work on jumping, which could make sense. Like you could work on the mechanics of jumping, but usually what a lot of individuals could use is just some strength.
Correct.
Just some good old-fashioned strength training a lot of times does the trick. You don't have to fake yourself out with a bunch of fancy stuff.
Right. And to tie into another thing is they teach specific movement patterns, loaded movement patterns, right? That supposedly or apparently have some sort of transfer, right? Well, in sport, especially contact sport, which is a lot more than you think, basketball is a contact sport, for instance, you get external influenced, you get moved out of this movement pattern. If you've only trained in certain movement patterns, what happens when you're out of that movement pattern? It's going to depend on that range strength, that entire range of motion strength. And so you need to be able to put yourself back into a proper movement pattern. And if you don't train out of those movement patterns, you will not have that strength or that ability. And that's how you get injured.
I think with a lot of the just movements in general, or the movement of fitness at the moment over the last maybe 5 years, let's say, with the influence of ATG and other movement practices, I think it's excellent in a lot of ways. I think what they share is excellent. I think what you guys are sharing is excellent. I think all of it is I think all of it's going to have a net benefit to a lot of people. And hopefully over time we can refine and figure out what's going to be like the most optimal. But something that I look at and something I think about often is, how did you obtain that? How did you obtain that black belt in jiu-jitsu? How did you obtain that level of strength in powerlifting? That's cool that you did that. But you did it in 5 years? Like, I want to see you in another 5 years. That's the kind of stuff that I start to think of. Like what did this cost you? What's the expense of this? Okay, that's cool that you're rich, but how did you make your money? You're doing some weird bullshit scam thing and like you feel good with that?
Can you sleep at night? You can have friends.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things I think about. And when I think about like trying to build, help build an athlete or make it easier for someone to like dominate a sport or something. Well, deadlifts, bench presses, and squats would be in there. But I certainly wouldn't have anybody do it the way that I did it.
Right.
The way that I did it was for completely different reasons, and it was those were like the only lifts that mattered. The results.
Your sport.
Yeah, it was very specific to my sport. And so I think we have to be careful we don't get too caught up. I think we get really boxed into the weight room. And the weight room itself is important. It can be very important, but there's been people playing sports at really high levels before there were weight rooms.
Yeah, and there's guys that still don't use weight rooms. So I find that as a tool for the kid. For me, I was the kid that was not athletic enough. So there is a balance between skill, movement, absolutely. There's guys that spend too much time in the weight room and not enough on the field and need to practice more. That happened with me at moments. Like you can get caught up. But the weight room saved my life in a sense. I mean, it allowed me for 10 years to pursue something that I was not naturally gifted enough to do, through that strength building. And the ATG system, if you will, is is exactly that. It's trying to bring a long-term, I get kind of emotional about it because like I literally was like, I would have never been able to play football. I would have never been able to do what I can do today. I had a little bit of knee pains. I had back pain. I had hip pain. All these things got fixed through this long-term approach, but I can still squat 450 and deadlift, 550. And now I'm going to work on my bench. And like these things were never achievable without that long-term kind of, approach.
Yeah.
So I really that's why I love ATG. That's why Ben and I, when we, were in a literal garage 10, 11 years ago, starting to work with this, and Charles, thank God I met him. And like that stuff it's the Bruce Lee thing, use what works for you, discard the rest. Like I've learned so much from powerlifting, from bodybuilding, from track and field, plyometric work, stuff like that. Even some of the movement patterns stuff, like those type of
I fucking love the parabol from Functional Patterns. Like it's for me personally, like I dig that, like, the circular movement of it. It's super beneficial for overall movement and integrating all the things that I've done in a gym setting. I enjoy that. You know what I mean? So
anyways, yeah, like there's great core. To me, that's what I consider that like my core, where like these movement, these twisting and things, like that's all that bracing work. But yeah, so at what expense, right? So at ATG, we try to eliminate that expense. So it might take longer. It might not be, if you're a powerlifter, you need to powerlift. If you're a bodybuilder, you need to bodybuild. But it can be supplement. It can be its own programming for life, and it can also be a supplementary program to whatever sport you're in. And that's how I used it for football. Okay. So I'm trying to expand that. That's kind of why Ben brought me in, is like, okay, let's expand this off of just knee rehab, if you will, and kind of body weight and like functional life fitness, but let's get into the strength. Let's get into the bodybuilding field a little more. Like, how can we supplement these sports?
Do you know if Ben has actively ever thought of this? It's something I had never thought to ask him until like more recently, but he's oftentimes working out outside. And I don't know if he just like kind of like is doing it and maybe doesn't know or understand, but like some of the research and some of the stuff that I've been seeing lately basically says that when you're surrounded by red light or surrounded by even sunlight, it can help with movement. It can help with fascia. It can help hydrate fascia. Have you heard anything about anything like that, or do you think he just kind of intuitively?
I will not speak for him, obviously, but knowing him, I don't think it's a specific thought. Okay, sorry, Ben, if I'm wrong. He's never mentioned it to me.
But yeah, he kind of works that way. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
But I know I can guarantee, he likes how he feels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. So, and he works out at home when he's not at the ATG headquarters. So his home gym, space-wise, is outside. And he loves it, right? And he knows, he's obviously aware that there's sun and there's benefits to this. Like, I don't think it's a very hyper-conscious thing, but yeah.
Yeah, you intuitively do that a lot too. You just go out and instead of jumping rope inside, he'll just walk outside and get the sun. And
yeah, if I were to have my home gym, it would be in a nice patio outside with a cover.
Right.
Florida, it rains too much. But there is, I go outside immediately, feel better. So I think anybody who's at all versed in the fitness and health area will know. Even your listeners, if they're not brand new, they'll probably be aware that going outside is pretty important.
So let's say that you've already gotten your blood work done with Merrick Health. You've gotten the right supplementation. You've handled your nutrition. But how about the people close to you? How about the people in your life? Recently, I had my mom get her blood work done with Merrick Health, and she's gotten her blood work done many times in the past. But Merrick did an amazing job at looking at her blood work and giving her the supplement ideas to help her move forward. Because one thing is when you go to hospitals and they get your blood work and they do your blood work, when they look at your numbers, they're comparing you to the average person. They're not trying to optimize you and help you move forward. They're just trying to make sure that you're not breaking. Whereas Merrick Health, when their patient care coordinators look at your blood work, and when they looked at my mom's, They're trying to figure out how to optimize you and make you live the most vital life possible. So if you've gotten your blood work done, great. But think about the people close to you. Would it be good for them to get their blood work done and get this type of work done? If so, Andrew, how can they get in contact with Merrick Health?
Yes, super important stuff, guys. Head over to merrickhealth.com/power project. That's MAREK health.com/power project. And at checkout, enter promo code Power Project to save 10% off the Power Project panel, the Power Project checkup panel, or any lab that you select on their website. Again, merrickhealth.com/power project. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
What you got going on over there, Andrew?
It seems like with whether it's functional patterns, ATG, or even bench pressing, like a huge component of all of it is just being coordinated. Like if I go out and I try to rotate that what's it called,
The parabol?
the parabol, like one, I'm like way more cautious and like I don't want to hurt myself, but because Nsima is he's like a lot more fluid with his movement, he's more coordinated, dare I say charismatic with his movement. I'm not that way, so like I won't be able to get it right away. It would just take me longer. But
I also didn't get it right away.
But you got it right, like eventually. So what I'm getting
You got
at
more
is
confidence maybe,
over time, it's almost like a skill that you can develop.
Yeah.
Again, same thing with like the split squat, same thing with the bench press,
Same thing with jogging.
Yeah, everything,
It's
right?
movement efficiency. That's just proven. You do a movement over a period of time, you burn less calorie.
Yeah, and so like, and not trying to be mean to like what you were saying or what FP is saying, it's almost like yeah, it all works. We're all going to get good at it eventually, but it's just dependent on what you are trying to focus on. Are you trying to be a bodybuilder? Like, okay, maybe start at FP and learn how to like maneuver your body and learn how to understand how your body moves. But then you're going to go into to bodybuilding. But I don't think any one of them has any say to be like, the other one's not good, ours is better. Well, for who and for what?
Right. It always the true answer is it depends.
Right.
Like that's what we were saying. Like the guy who's never moved and older doesn't have any aspirations. That's like maybe FP is great.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I'll say is the ability to progress. Is it in the system?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say the difference is there.
Mm-hmm.
The ATG has a technically infinite progression. There is no cap to that progression.
Yeah, and then so again, going back to like the thing about like coordination and stuff. I know again, it's like almost like a skill acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are working with somebody, and I mean, I know Mark, you've tried to teach people how to squat, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, dude, how can you be that bad?
Sometimes the RDLs they just can't.
Yeah, so what do you
control this with your back?
I mean, like I always say, don't shit in my gym.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, you just defined my deadlift. But yeah, like what do you do when somebody's like just like, dude, they're not getting it, but like I know there's regressions, but like what's like I guess what's a good protocol for somebody that's like, man, I'm trying this ATG split squat, I keep falling over. Like what the heck am I doing wrong?
There is regressions for it. That's why you hold on to something. Mm-hmm. Ben is actually about to release some like split squat rack thing with the handles on the side, which is actually amazing. I warm up with that thing even because sometimes you're tired. It's like, so there is a balance component. Absolutely. There's just skill acquisition, balance. But remember, actually Charles taught me this, is balance is heavily dependent on strength. Heavily. And I forget exactly the study or whatever, but in one of the seminars he was talking about and showing how the stronger you are, the better balance you're going to have. Of course, there's a major natural genetic factor in brain function before the age of 2, whatever it is. There's a whole thing to that. But the stronger you are is the only way you can increase your balance out like within your genetic capacity. Okay. So getting stronger, but again, what if you can't? Okay, then regress to the point where it's on a magazine, holding on to a rail, doing a step up. If that's the strength of your knee, that's where you start. Walking backwards. Okay, if you can't walk backwards, like go in a pool.
Yeah,
do knee bends in the pool. It's less weight. There's always a way to regress.
Yeah, no matter where you are, it'll meet you where you are.
That's right.
That's cool.
And
people don't like to like hang on to stuff. They think it's like, they're completely changing the exercise or something, but the exercise will still have its challenge. Your body will still get the inputs, and balance, I wouldn't say is the first place to start with a lot of these exercises anyway, unless you're more advanced.
Exactly.
Like you can save that shit for
correct
some other time. You know, the balance will come too, and people get super frustrated, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't have it." Like they fall, not fall but stumble right
they'll
away.
keep trying to balance. I'm like, no, okay, hold on, and let's even hold on and have a dumbbell. Like get the input, like you said, of like progression and tearing down that muscle for growth and. Yeah, don't worry about the balance so much sometimes. Again, depending on what you're doing.
Don't allow yourself to get real negative about it and just realize that it's a practice. Like you just started. Like if this is the first time you're doing this, why are you saying that you don't have any balance? Like you just don't have any practice at this yet.
That's right.
You'll get the balance.
That's right.
It will take maybe 2-3 weeks for a lot of people, just a couple of weeks, and you start to get used to those movements right away.
I agree. Yeah, that makes sense.
Athletically, let me ask you this. Do you still do any sprinting right now?
In sport, so when I play basketball, I'll sprint.
Okay.
I don't do track sprinting. Would love to.
But you can sprint.
I can. I will do some plyometrics if I catch myself going a few weeks without playing a sport, particularly like basketball. Right now, like actively, I play semi-regularly. These are all semi-regularly. I'll do. I spent a lot of time doing Muay Thai.
Nice.
And jiu-jitsu. I've spent 12 years now since I competed against AJ Agrasum, Florida boy, back when I was like 18 or 19. Anyways, he kicked my ass. But I got third place, so that's pretty good. Anyways, so I always will pick up anything since I'm not professional or pursuing professional in anything. I beach volleyball, basketball when Ben's in town.
It's great that you have the capacity to do all these things because one thing is like, again, the conversation we were having earlier, people assume that when you gain a bit of muscle or that it's going to limit your ability to be a good athlete. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not why you see good athletes like moving and sprinting and jumping. It's like, it's not limiting them.
It's actually quite the opposite. For me, anyways, let's put it that way. It's been the more muscle mass I've gained because of the way I did it. Has increased my ability and function.
And on that point, I've mentioned this before, but the way in which you lift is going to dictate the way in which you move.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like you lift with a super limited range of motion, super heavy all the time. You're going to have a weird gait. You're gonna move odd. You're going to be really tight. You're going to be visibly tight. You're going to have limited movement options. You extend those. You decrease the load. You increase your range of motion. You can have more movement options and more movement ability.
Yep, 100%.
What's your diet like?
It's a good question. I wanted to talk about this because I know Ben does not get into this.
Yeah, I know. Ben's told me. He
refuses.
He's like, this is how I eat. He told me exactly kind of what he does. And he told me like why he does it and everything. And then he was like, but I don't like talking about it.
Yeah, it's because the world's a little intense on this subject. So, all right. I'm going to say what I eat, but then I do want to like talk about the more like a higher view of it. Okay. So for me, I am very much animal based. Okay. That means 1.5 to 2 pounds of meat a day, red meat, 6 to 12 eggs a day. And then I eat fruit. Okay. I love fruit. I'm okay with a little raw honey, and I have cheat meals. Yeah. I'm not a zealot. I like to enjoy I will drink sometimes. Now, when I say this, I do have to put the caveat because I realize what, I drink occasionally means to some people. It means once a week, twice a week. No, I drink like once every quarter.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. I don't drink a lot. And that's not intentional, to be honest. It's just kind of my lifestyle, whatever. I have a friend, one of my best friends. He likes to drink a lot. So when I'm with him, I'll drink a little, but definitely not more than 10 times. Sometimes it's 3 to 5 times a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Special occasions, whatever. I don't really think about it. Okay. But I definitely need to say I don't drink a lot. I think that's for long-term low body fat, that is an important factor. Protein is king to me. Like every meal, this is a thing I've had for 10 years, is every meal has to have protein. If not, I'd rather not eat almost. You know what I mean? So big on that. Now, with that said, I don't eat vegetables. I am not against vegetables.
Yeah.
I like Paul. I don't have his stance on vegetables.
Yeah. You mean Salad Man?
What's that?
Saladino?
Saladino, yeah.
Paul Saladino,
Okay.
yeah. I discovered Mr. Baker, Sean Baker, almost 10 years ago. I forget exactly. Really was interesting. I started doing carnivore a month or two at a time back then. And I was attacked. And I got to a point where I didn't really want to talk about my diet either. But then I was like, it's just, fuck it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I've fluctuated. I used to eat lots of salads. I did keto, technical, big salad. I've done ketosis for 6 months at a time. I have found that the optimal diet is what works for you. Wow. Amazing concept. But also what you can stick to the longest.
Yeah.
That to me is actually number one. What can you do? All diets, every vegan that's ever had a success story, every vegetarian, every carnivore.
Same thing with your exercise.
Guess
you
what?
really enjoy being on your bike, then
Boom.
get on your bike.
That's right. All of them had one thing in common. The common denominator is they all did it for a long period of time.
Along with some steroids. Oh, wait. No,
wait.
All right, that's what got us canceled.
He was joking, YouTube. Just joking.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a joke. I might not have been very good, but it was a joke.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where you have to be able to enjoy it and do it in your lifestyle. So somebody, an influencer online saying, do this diet. Well, and they got 4 kids and they don't live, there's the meat, they can't afford the meat. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
It has to be accessible and you have to be able to adhere. Adherence is number 1. Number 2 is what works for you. And then number 3, I'm not, is protein, right? Protein is king. You have to have, I do say the 1 gram per pound. I just think it's a nice, simple number. It works for so many people. I've never seen it not work. And the vegetables and fruit thing, it's up to you. Just eat balanced if you want. If you're not sure, eat a little bit of both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Vegetables bloat me. I don't like them. A couple I can get away with. I think asparagus is the one vegetable I actually kind of like, and it doesn't mess my stomach up. But if I have broccoli or what's that other one? The ball.
Brussels sprouts?
Brussels sprouts, man, that stuff messes me up, right? So whatever, it's just for my body, that has worked. I've been doing this for nearly a decade. And actually the more I started not having vegetables and being a little bit more just in my own, being comfortable with my own diet.
Yeah.
I now stay lean year round constantly. I can gain weight. I just eat a little more, train a little harder. And if I lose weight, I just skip a meal. Replace it with amino acid. There's just so many, the fasting thing, it's a tool. Do you need to fast? No. Can you? Should you? Maybe, if it works for you.
Yeah.
In the end, so this is kind of where we're getting into the high level thing. It's if you want to lose body fat, particularly for body fat, it's increase your energy expenditure. Okay, exercise, good. Which exercise? Whatever you like. Number 2, eat enough protein to recover from this energy expenditure increase. Okay, and allows you to build more muscle and strength to increase the energy expenditure. Number 3, sleep. You need to rebuild from this work. Hormones stay regulated. You don't increase your cortisol with bad sleep, which increases cravings. Good. Number 4, yes, you need to be in a calorie deficit. No one argues that. Even carnivore, it's the thing with eating more protein or this and that, what type of foods can determine that energy expenditure, which is kind of my next point. Is the 5th point is real food. We do know that. Vegans and carnivores agree. You need to eat real food, unprocessed food. All right.
Yeah.
So start there. You know what I mean? And that will maintain a long-term healthy hormone and energy expenditure. There'll be people say, oh yeah, well I can eat Snickers. And okay, maybe, yeah, you can. Absolutely. You can eat 2 donuts a day and not eat anything else and you will lose weight. But what about in 5, 10, 20 years? That's the thing that gets forgotten sometimes in these short studies or these kind of looking at things through a straw. It's okay, expand that. So the real foods and then of course consistency and accessibility, accountability, track yourself, give yourself a purpose, a reason to do it. So for me, I want to be lean. I like how I look. I like how I feel. I can dunk. I can play these sports because I'm lean. And don't have health issues. Like I want to be able to live long and healthy. And, you know, I see my dad. My dad is carnivore, works for him. Okay. He saved his life. I saw him a few years ago and I was like, I remember it was his birthday. He was turning 70. I didn't see him in a year. And I was like getting a little emotional. I was like, man, because I saw some Instagram video. It's like, if you see your dad twice a year, how many years is you going to see him 20 more times? I was like, I got all fucked up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys ever saw
I've
that
seen
video.
that video.
Dude,
I've
mess.
seen that.
So I like rushed down. It's his birthday. I'm like, he comes out. He's like, he literally says, it's almost like he knew I saw that video. He comes out. He's like, you thought I was going to die soon, didn't you? And I'm like, and he's jacked. That was that video I had posted that he showed earlier. But it's like, he's jacked and he's got more life today than when he was 50. Wow. Like it is, I was so happy. And now I'm like, oh man, I'll see you twice a year again. No, I'm kidding. But it's like, he's more alive, more energy, happier than ever before. So
Nice.
it worked for him. And he's killing it and stuff. So yeah, diet, to me, those are like my principles. It's just in the end, all diets have to follow those rules. And so as long as you're doing that, do what works for you. Do what you like.
I would say, vegetables, intermittent fasting, and protein are all things that can help control someone's calories. You know,
I will say, I
very
will
simple
agree with
way.
you with the fiber on the vegetables.
Yeah.
That when you are cutting, when you are eating less, you will get hungry. So it is a tool.
Some volume, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tool to fill. So that I actually do agree with the vegetable thing. If you don't have that problem, you may not need that. But if you are like, I'm starving and how do I have cravings? Yeah, fill yourself up with that fiber. That I will acknowledge that does work.
I do think for some people that really have big appetites and that maybe are concerned with health or maybe had they're concerned about like cardiovascular. I think, fill your diet in with vegetables and fruit. You know, eat a great amount of protein.
Yes.
Nail that protein down.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not overeating fat.
Yeah.
And then you should be good. I mean, on the road to having a very healthy diet. And I think in terms of carbohydrates, it would maybe just depend on activity levels.
Yeah. Charles used to always say, earn your carbs. Yeah. That's what I go by. When I'm not active for a few days, I go 50 carb, 100 carb. I go low carb. And then when I'm hyperactive, I'm training hard, I go body weight to double body weight, depending.
Throw in some rice, potatoes.
I'm a
things
huge white rice fan.
Yeah.
Huge. I eat white rice all the time when I'm not on my like carnivore month or whatever. Like I'll do these different things. I like to cycle diets too. I think it keeps me flexible, like a flexible dieting, if you will. So I'm a big white rice fan though. Like very low toxin, all that stuff. You want to get into that. But it's, what was the other thing? You said protein, vegetables.
Protein, vegetables, and intermittent fasting are all
yeah.
great tools just to help like mitigate the overall amount of calories you're eating. And you
fasting
can do
is
intermittent
great.
fasting so many different ways. Like you could eat your breakfast and then just not eat for 6 or 7 hours.
Right.
Like there's so many ways of doing it.
I use that all the time.
Yeah, I personally like to do things that way better. I like having some breakfast. What I found is that having some breakfast and then when I get home from here, I won't overeat. Before, if I would fast,
Then
I'd have
you're
a
like,
tendency to be
gorge.
so hyped up to kind of overdo it. So.
Yeah, I'll play sometimes. Like if I want to do strength training in the morning, I definitely am stronger. By the way, if I eat a couple hours before, I don't know exactly why, but I am. So I will like to eat, but after I eat, I'm not really hungry. I'll take my amino acid. I'll take my kind of like post workout stuff, but then I'll go long time not eating. Or I'll eat big, and then after that, I'm so like over, like I don't have to eat dinner. So yeah, it's just like skipping meal. In the end, it's calorie reduction. That's where that comes into play, So, or portion control, if you will. So yeah.
And you've said that you've been feeling really good, but like, have you gotten any blood work to see like with the red meat consumption and stuff, if anything has popped up red or whatever?
Yeah, I've done a lot of testing on that, and I'm actually glad you brought that. That's amazing. I had it in one of my notes. I was listening to the Sean Baker podcast. He was talking about the LDL, the lipid energy profile thing. I forget the exact word he used there, but I had that exact thing going on. It was perfect blood work. Testosterone's in the 800, everything good. I'm healthy. I'm pretty happy, actually. My LDL was very high. I think it was So I'll have to find it. Or maybe I'll send it to you guys, whatever. But I know it was in the 300, like high 300s.
Yeah.
Maybe 400. It was like around that 380 of the guy who did that experiment with the Oreos. I was like, okay. I talked to my dad because he's been on carnivore. I was like, yo, this is kind of sketchy. You know what I mean? Did more tests on the type, and the doctor said it was fine. But then I was like, okay, but I'm going to do a test. So I started eating carbs again. Down. Everything else the same. It was like, all right.
Wow. How much did it come down? Do you remember?
I think it went down. I'll have to find the test, but I think it went down to, God, it was in the low 200s.
Okay.
And I don't even know, I can't off the top of my head even remember what's healthy or whatever, or like what's considered healthy or whatever. But I remember it was a humongous drop. And what I do know from this stuff, because I obviously constantly research and I'm up to date on this stuff, is like the HDL, my triglycerides were so low. The CRP, like all my inflammation markers were like bottom.
Nice.
Like they were like the glucose, everything is super, super, super low and healthy, right? So I was not too freaked out when I saw the LDL. I was like, okay. And I, again, doing the research and finding out, I was like, oh, that could just be the excretion of this for the breakdown for energy, basically. So that was interesting. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what happened with me per blood work. So it's pretty cool to see that. Yeah.
Tell us about some of these supplements you got here.
Yeah. Okay. So
This stuff tastes pretty good. I mixed it with something else that I had in here already, just because I already had something in my shaker cup. But
yeah,
tastes good. I like that. It's like an orangey flavor, huh?
yeah. I have an orange and a strawberry. This is honestly a passion project of mine. It was quick backstory is I was literally born in a vitamin. My father's had one for 40 years. Down in Miami. My mom's a nutritionist. So I like literally grew up. I was mixing pre-workouts and amino acids when I was 15 years old in my kitchen trying, because I was like I wanted to be more athletic and get the most out of these things. And I could have just done steroids and didn't.
Bypass.
I was scared. Whatever, testing and all this shit. Anyways, but I have this is an electrolyte and an EAA. Was turned on to EAAs, essential amino acids, by Charles. He used to do the BCA thing. He actually told us, he's like, yeah, it was not working. There was a lot of transaminase occurring, which means they get converted to other things that you don't actually want. And then I was like, that's kind of what got me into the EAA. And then I was like, well, what formula of EAA? So like I told you before, I'm going to send you this study. I'm quite curious what comes back, but it seems like an amazing study. It's showing a net nitrogen utilization of 99%. So they took over 100 people, had them. Yeah, those are my products. I have vitamin D, K2, bonded with omega-3 and MCT oil, zinc and magnesium, creatine, just
pain in the ass creating all that stuff, right?
Oh, huge pain in the ass. But these things, these are all things I take. And I just basically wanted, like I said, a passion project. It's just like supplements I've grown up taking that I've always taken most consistently. Yeah. But with real quickly on the EAA formula, it was just shown to be like optimally utilized. Whereas like any meat, it doesn't replace protein. You need all the micronutrients and all that stuff. But as a supplement of just pure building blocks to your body for training, it seems to be the best utilized, best absorbed. And so for that reason, I went with that. But then, yeah, so everything else is just like, everybody needs vitamin D. We're inside too much, we don't take enough. The quality of meat generally is average anyways, is lower for most people. So the zinc and the magnesium is generally low in people, so creatine is amazing. I mean, brain, it's actually becoming now more of a brain supplement.
Yeah.
Right. So I honestly went 8 years without taking creatine specifically, but I was eating 2 pounds of red meat. So
there we go.
Now I'm on it like crazy. Yeah. Because I just thought, I don't really need it. No. Now I'm like religiously take it, and I've noticed a difference. I forgot a little bit fuller, Shit. I think I gained a couple, like you do gain a little bit, a couple pounds of that water weight in the muscle, but that's good. It's hydrating your muscle. Yep. That's how I, view it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you?
Fueled by Fern on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all pretty new. YouTube is like very new. The Instagram is a bit more developed. Been doing that for maybe a year and a half or so. And then the supplement company is Surpo, SURPO, nutrition.com. It's short for survival potentials, by the way. It's random. It's
Cool.
kind of my dad had some company in the 80s, so I was like, no, I'll take that.
Nice.
Anyways, serponutrition.com and Fueled by Fern.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
If you guys enjoyed this podcast episode with Fernando Lopez, check out this one with Ben Patrick. More ATG type concepts, more concepts to help you learn how to lift for longevity. Click right here. Lots to learn. Click it.